Greetings Exiles and welcome to my personal top 10 starter builds for the upcoming 3.10 Delirium League. I got everything. Lightning fast mapping and leveling characters, safe and easy tank boss killers, extremely cheap off-meta builds, and super high scaling abilities you can play for the whole league to get absurd damage, utility and speed. All builds have been played and tested by myself with both super cheap starter gear and endgame gear. Noteworthy is that on every single build I was able to clear the highest Atlas content with the budget starter gear. If you can't find an interesting build for you, make sure to check out my new honorable mention section at the end of the video. As always, timestamps are in the video description. If you've seen my previous videos, you will notice that some builds from past leagues are still on my list. That's not because I didn't play any new builds, but because those are strong builds that haven't been changed over the past couple of patches. I'm playing 5 to 10 builds per league, but not all are suitable starters. That said, only because a build is not in the top 3 of my list doesn't mean it's a bad one. This is my personal rating and my personal comparison based on the experience I had on every single build. All links can be found in the video description. Let's have a look at how I did the ranking before we get to the first build. I changed the range of the values as well as added the starter gear price prediction. Nobody can say how much a build will really cost before the league starts, but based on recent leaks and my experience I try to give you an estimate. Upgradability means the overall gear difference when comparing starter and high budget endgame gear. In my opinion, the more you can upgrade the build, the better it is. Otherwise, the build or the game gets boring really fast. More points means better in any specific category to reach a theoretical maximum of 100 points. There will be an overview at the end of the video, so if you do not need the best allrounder, you can see which build is best in which category. The first build on my list with 69 points at rank 10 is the multi-conversion Divine Ire Trickster. This is one of the most satisfying builds I have ever played due to on-death explosion stacking. You are super fast in maps and you usually don't even have to charge your beam to evaporize packs, since just a single mob has to die to trigger a chain explosion. With enough currency and full Eternity Shroud gear, this build is actually able to potentially one-shot every single boss in the game. And this is also where the negatives of the build comes in. If your charge beam against bosses doesn't crit or proc any additional effects, the damage will be around nothing. This and the fact that you have to stand still while channeling make it a coin flip character. So, if you're looking for something fast and flashy with one of the best damage scalings in the game, then you should try out this Divine Ire character. The next two builds on my list are tied at 8th place with 70 points. Starting with the Icicle Mine Deadeye I played in Blight League. The changes to Icicle Mine made in 3.9 didn't really affect this version of the build, since you make use of the Deadeye Ascendancy instead of the Saboteur. It features a unique miner playstyle that allows to pre-stack mines on bosses while still offering one of the best map clears I have yet experienced due to chain stacking. The build is evasion and life based. At times you feel like you can tank everything until you get one-shot by a huge crit that penetrated your evasion. A versatile build that is super fun to play, but can get annoying if you want to reach higher character levels. The second build on rank 8 is my Vortex tank Occultist from last league. Slow, steady and safe is the motto of this tank version of the character. 10,000 plus combined life and energy shield as well as double defensive curses causing on-death explosions allow for a safe and still efficient starter. This build is hardcore and solo self-found viable and is the build I would suggest players who want to get into bossing. The single target damage is quite low, but you are tough enough to learn most boss mechanics on the build without receiving the ultimate punishment of failing. If you want a lazy playstyle to watch Netflix while playing, then this is the build you want to go for. Rank 7 is the Cyclone cast on crit Ice Nova Assassin. A build that has been around for quite some time, and the Assassin changes a few leagues ago made sure this character has been on the top 5 played builds for a couple of leagues now. You are simply cycloning around, proccing up to 15 ice novas per second when hitting enemies, which usually can't fight back because you are chilling and freezing them before they can react. Cyclone doesn't have the highest AoE anymore, but a lot of movement speed from gear and the Ascendancy help to get through maps relatively quick. Good starter gear, especially a Cospriest Malice, can be expensive early into the league. That's not a huge problem, since you only need strong gear once you reach high awakening levels. The playstyle is super relaxed and easy due to Cyclone allowing to move around while attacking, making this build strong for all types of content in the game if you don't mind putting some currency in. Coming in at 72 points, the Cobra Lash Poison Assassin on rank 6. This skill has built-in chain which allows for strong clear speed without sacrificing multiple support gem sockets to gain utility and instead get even more damage. The Assassin Ascendancy, in my opinion the best overall Ascendancy, gives you everything this build needs. A lot of speed modifiers, strong secondary defense and huge poison damage multipliers. Although poison is damage over time, the raw damage in this build allows super fast clear speed without having to wait for the enemies to die. Tougher enemies might still need a few seconds, but once you had those seconds to attack freely, everything melts. That is, only if you have the chance to attack freely, which in some situations isn't possible due to a limited life pool and being evasion based. The cost of this build is below anything I've ever played. The only thing that is a bit expensive would be a 6-link chest, but since this piece of armor isn't used for any meta build, even this will be super cheap. If you never played a poison build and don't want to spend any noteworthy currency and still steamroll the game, this is the build for you. Getting closer to my personal top builds is the Herald of Purity Guardian at rank 5. This is an active minion build since you have to keep up the minions spawned by Herald of Purity. Those minions are usually not that smart, but once they reach a target, each of them hits like a truck, making damage scaling obsolete. Instead, you can focus on pure defense on most of your gear. In my case, I was regenerating about 30% of my life per second without the Ascendancy, and each of my Herald Sentinels dealt more than 1.5 million Shaper DPS. Without some investment into regen, you might not be able to blindly run into everything, but if you played minions before and want to try something else than just specters and zombies where fall asleep while playing, go for the Herald of Purity Guardian with tremendous offense and defense. Rank 4 is the build that I believe could become meta again in Delirium League and that I personally recommend. The Chaos Damage over time Occultist. This build uses the overpowered combination of Essence Drain and Contagion to clear multiple screens with just a simple 2-button combo. Even though all of your damage is damage over time, in most situations it feels like any other burst ability because of how much damage is possible. Strong enemies will die behind you while you're already aiming at the next pack. It is super safe to play against bosses because you have to apply your dots, Essence Drain and Bane, just every few seconds, which allows for regen and easy dodging. To get the most efficiency, you want 2 6-links, one for Essence Drain and one for Bane, which can be expensive early on. But even without double 6-link, but maybe double 5 or 1 6 and 1 4-link, the damage and utility of this build is enough for anybody who wants to play the endgame with ease and clear maps with unmatched speed. With a total of 77 points on rank 3 is the Cyclone Impale Slayer. Impale is still extremely overpowered and should be nerfed, at least in my opinion, since it comes at nearly no cost but with a more than 85% damage multiplier. Cyclone is the smoothest ability in the game since you simply have to hold right click and everything around you dies. The strong damage and utility combined with the Slayer Overleech make sure that even without good gear you can easily kill everything in the game. I used this build in Blight League to carry Uber Elder and other bosses on a 50 chaos budget at day 3 of the league. The Cyclone AoE nerfs were necessary, but that also means the clear speed, while still good, is nothing special anymore. If you're interested in an easy bosser with huge damage, utility and strong defense, this is your build to go. Coming in at a whopping 82 points is a build that's based around my most favorite spell in the game. the Stormbrand Inquisitor in the top 3 for the 3rd time in a row. Once you get used to this unique playstyle of brands, I promise you will think twice about going back to a different ability. Stormbrand in combination with Brand Recall offer huge utility and clear speed. You can compare this skill to damage over time abilities since it sticks to the target for several seconds. This allows you to move while the brands kill everything around them and then chain to the next pack. The Inquisitor Ascendancy makes sure that the recent increases in difficulty are pretty much obsolete, especially on high awakening levels and bosses. Life regen can be tough as long as you don't invest into it. Other than that, this build is too strong for anybody to ignore if you want a cheap and highly efficient all-rounder. And finally, rank 1. My league starter from last league, Metamorph, my Reave Blade Flurry champion. I had by far the fastest and easiest league start of all time on this build. I kept asking myself if all content actually got more difficult in the patch, because this character blasted through everything without any gear. Until I killed my first ever Cyrus, my most expensive item was an uncorrupted tabula with weapons worth less than 5 chaos each and rare items you pick up on the way. Reave is a completely underrated melee skill in this game since you can scale its AoE to be more than the whole screen without losing too much damage due to the, as champion even more, overpowered Impale. Your Ascendancy doesn't only grant you humongous damage but also good utility, life regen and other defensive stats. For the highest possible single target in this build, you have to do some gem swaps for the biggest bosses in the game. Blade Flurry damage is something you will miss once you are not playing this build anymore, even though it is hard to pull off for maximum damage. But that's also the reason why it is my most favorite melee skill in the game. I killed fully juiced tier 16 awakening 8 Metamorphs without even fully stacking for maximum damage in less than a second. Your toughness, leech and regen allows you to be cocky and tank most bosses until they are dead without going down yourself. If you don't mind swapping gems for very few occasions in the game and would like to play a strong all-rounder that scales tremendously off gear, then I highly suggest you try this build. And there you go, that's it. That was my personal top 10 builds to start with in the upcoming 3.10 Delirium League. Even though I love playing Reave Blade Flurry for several leagues in different builds, I still recommend the Chaos Damage over Time Occultist because I believe that Delirium will be a clear speed meta league. If you wanna go as cheap as possible to maybe save up for a future build, go for the Cobra Lash Poison Assassin. Did you ever want to get into bossing? Then the Vortex, Cyclone or Minion builds are a good choice. Or are you more interested in an all-rounder build that does everything on a budget with just a few drawbacks? Play one of my 2 favorite builds, the Stormbrand Inquisitor or the Reave Blade Flurry champion. While you can have a look at my honorable mentions, I'd like to ask you to get active and help me out a little bit. Was this video helpful and do you already know what you might play at league start? What exactly can I improve on within this or any other video? I'm still quite new to making videos and guides, so any constructive criticism is really helpful. Also, if you have any questions about the build, please comment below the corresponding build guide video. Most of them will be updated in the future, so don't forget to subscribe to my channel for updates and a lot of new stuff coming. On League Start, I will be streaming live on Twitch, so make sure to follow me there and feel free to ask me anything while I'm live. I didn't completely make up my mind yet, but I'll probably start with the Chaos Damage over Time Occultist in Softcore, Trade League, or start with another ability I always wanted to play. You can find links to all builds, a short Path of Building guide, and my Twitch in the video description. Some guides will be updated and re-uploaded before the league start. As soon as the PoB is updated, I will also update all PoBs for all builds. Leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss out on anything. I greatly appreciate you taking the time to watch this and any other videos, and I hope to see you on my stream at League Start. Thank you very much for watching, I am Jay, and I'm out.